he's one of the most compassionate, dedicated people I've ever met. He's a workhorse, and he's the exact type of person we need in office in Virginia. And I say that heartfelt. I'll do anything that, as Kelly, my wife, says, you throw yourself in front of a bus for Steve Shannon, which I would do. So without further ado, I want to introduce the next Attorney General of the state of Virginia. Steve
Well, thank you. This is great. It feels like only yesterday we were doing this for Judy when we had our fundraiser here. And Jim, I want to thank you, Kelly. I want to thank you for doing this for me, and I want to thank everybody who is willing to serve as a host, people who are willing to give their time and give their resources to making sure we win this seat. I thought what I'd do for just a couple minutes is talk briefly about my background, why I'm running for Attorney General of Virginia, and we can talk about the race for a little bit. I got involved in public life many years ago when my wife, Abby, learned about a program down in North Arlington, Texas, called the Amber Alert program. The Amber Alert, as everybody here knows, is a child safety initiative that tries to get the community looking for our children when they are reported missing or abducted. Named after a little girl, Amber Hagerman, who was playing outside her front yard with her little brother, and some guy literally pulled her off her bike. And it was a tragic situation, and the community down in Texas created the first Amber Alert program. Abby learned about this program in the 1990s and said, Steve, this is really something that we should try to get up and going in our community. And we spent the better part of 2 years working with community leaders across Virginia, over in Maryland, and in the District of Columbia to put together Virginia's first Amber Alert program and the first interstate Amber Alert program. That was really my first foray into public service. Several years later, I decided to become a Fairfax County prosecutor. I worked for Bob Horan, who was the Commonwealth's attorney of Fairfax for 40 years. And I volunteered to be one of the 2 prosecutors in Virginia's largest jurisdiction that handles all the cases involving children who had been the victims of sexual crimes. Now, for any lawyers in the room, you know that those cases are very difficult from an evidentiary perspective, but I think they're very worthy cases because you are defending the most vulnerable in our society. I decided to run for the Virginia House of Delegates back in 2003, and there are a lot of people in this room who helped me. I was running in a district that, quite frankly, a lot of folks thought that somebody running as a Democrat could not win in. But I knocked on over 10,000 doors. A lot of people in this room knocked on doors with me, and we were able to win that seat. Went down to Richmond, and I have focused my efforts on trying to keep Virginia safe. Child safety initiatives that make sense, cost-efficient ways to keep our community safe. And frankly, I'm running for Attorney General for the same reason that my wife and I worked to get the Amber Alert up and going, for the same reason I became a prosecutor, the same reason I decided to run for the House of Delegates. I am running for Attorney General to make Virginia a safer place for all of us to call home. Okay. It is just that simple. That's it. That really focuses on 3 things. In order to make Virginia a safer place to call home, there are 3 things that I'm focused on. The first thing is that as I travel across the state and reach out to law enforcement, including Beth, who just left, one of the things I hear is people say, you know, Steve, if there's something you can do in the Attorney General's office, it is to help us with the issue of gangs. We have got to keep these gangs away from recruiting our kids, and we've got to get the gangs out of our neighborhoods. And one of the things that we've learned is that gangs don't operate on a jurisdictional basis. They operate on a regional basis. My belief is that you need a comprehensive plan that deals with reaching the kids through the school system before you have to reach anyone through the court system, while at the same time bringing in the community, bringing in the nonprofit sector, bringing in the business sector, working with local community leaders, so kids have options other than getting pulled into gangs. But my priority is going to be focusing on going through the school system rather than going through the court system, but we are going to get these gangs out of communities across Virginia. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing I'm focused on has to do with the reality that the security issues that we have today are dramatically different than the security issues we had 10 years ago. And we see it in no better place than with technology. You know, technology has done wonderful things for Virginia. I mean, you look at the fact that 1 in 3 jobs last year produced in Virginia came from the technology sector. That 2 years ago, tobacco stopped being our #1 export. It's now microchips, right? They're in our phones, or in our GPS, and our microwaves. The world is changing, but our security issues are changing as well. And in part, I'm talking about when our kids and our grandkids are on the internet, and they think they're talking to other kids on the chat room, and they're actually talking to adults who are trying to exploit them. In part, I'm talking about the fact that now all the information we have on all of our citizens at the state level, it's electronic. Your health records, your tax records, your business records. And as general counsel to the state government, it's going to be my responsibility to protect you and to protect your information so that you are not the victims of identity theft. So that's the second area. And the third area has to do with the fact that Virginia needs to remain the most pro-business state in the union. It didn't happen by accident. It happened with the leadership of Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, folks in the legislature who have made key investments. But the Attorney General can play a major role, particularly in this difficult economic time. The Attorney General is charged with protecting Virginia businesses and protecting Virginia citizens from being exploited in the market. And in particular, what I'm talking about is financial crimes and financial frauds. The Attorney General is supposed to be the advocate for you, and I'm going to take that role seriously. I mean, the common denominator with being an advocate for Virginia businesses and for our citizens, with dealing with the gang issue, with dealing with 21st century security issues, is that I'm running for Attorney General of Virginia to make Virginia a safer place for all of us to call home. Now, the reality is you can have a good candidate with a good biography, you can have good issues that resonate, you can have a good organization, but if you don't have resources, you're just not going to get over the finish line, right? And so for that reason, I want to thank you for being here tonight. We've raised about $1.3 million so far. That's before Tim and Kelly's contribution tonight. We're at 1.3 million right now. We have been very fiscally conservative with regard to our spending, but we are going to have the resources because we're all working together to make sure that we have our positive message out there from Labor Day on. So let me conclude by saying thank you. Thank you for all that you've done to get me to where we are right now. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for helping me make Virginia a safer place for all of us to call home. So thank you all very much.